Hello and welcome. My name is Craig Milbourne. I'm the Managing Director and Co-founder of Competency Recruitment Solutions, Management Consulting and FTSE 500 Recruitment Specialists. And today this video is a quick preparation tutorial containing interview tips for the management consulting space. But before we dive into the interview preparation, please find a few short points as to why you might listen to myself. Okay, so why listen to me? Number one, I was voted the UK's top management consulting recruiter in 2007. Point two, I've reviewed over 30,000 CVs in the last 7 years, so I've got a good idea of what management consultancies are looking for. Number three, I've placed and coached for interviews thousands of candidates over the last 7 years into the top management consulting firms worldwide. So that's the UK, it's Europe, it's EMEA, North America, Asia, across continents. Point number four, I have dozens of testimonials which you can see in the public domain on my LinkedIn profile, which will demonstrate some of these successes. And point five, I've recruited successful campaigns into many big companies such as Accenture, Ernst & Young and Capgemini, some household names there in the consulting space. So, a key element of preparation is to know your CV, know your dates and times, what your role and responsibility was, and be very clear on that. But to narrow that down even further, it's always a good idea to know your three best achievements, the things that you're most proud of, or which highlight your success the most. So the do's and don'ts in terms of your best three achievements. So be able to define your role, responsibility, and how you added value. So what you did, how you did it, and what it achieved. Be able to provide specifics and examples regarding this. And we're looking for things like tangible, measurable deliverables, things that you can hang your hat on or that sounds and can be perceived and is trusted as being credible. So we want facts, figures, numbers, examples, because the more proof that you provide, it creates a much more compelling marketing argument for the company in question to hire you. So in terms of the don'ts with your best achievements, avoid saying things like we did this, we did that, this sort of group mentality, because it can detract away from what your individual role is or make that appear to be unclear. And my only caveat on this, and I will be contradicting myself slightly here, don't use those words unless you're being asked to answer questions around collaboration, teamwork and contribution to groups, because then absolutely you would use those kind of words, we did this, we did that. But again, highlight how you added value, made things better, contributed to that team. Okay, the next slide is titled Breadth and Depth. So be able to give 2 or 3 examples of each scenario type question that you might be faced in an interview. For example, you want 3 examples of working under pressure, 3 examples of problem solving, a couple of examples where you might have exceeded expectation with clients or on projects or with stakeholders or management. Now what you must avoid is just drawing reference to the same amazing successful project. Now it could be the best project in the world, it might demonstrate and highlight every point that an interviewer would want to know exactly down to a T. However, if you only draw on a narrow breadth of projects, 1 or 2 projects or just 1 or 2 clients, then you may appear as a one-trick pony, a little bit one-dimensional, and not displaying, a plethora of examples and different roles and responsibilities and scenarios. So they want to see a bit of malleability, a bit of diverse set of responses and situations, because then if that's the case, then you're probably more likely to be able to fit into their organization and hit the ground running from the start. Okay, in terms of job specs, I've got a little tactic here and I call it slice and dice. This is where you would go through the job spec line by line, as long as it's not ridiculously long, of course, but 1 or 2 page job spec, something like that. You can go through it line by line and just make notes for each line individually, point by point, and be able to write down 2 or 3 examples for each point or your nearest alignment to each point in the job spec to demonstrate examples of your work, your experience, projects and things like that to address and answer each of those questions if it came along. Now, questions won't be thrown at you as in answer line number 5 with 2 examples, but these things will merge into conversation throughout the interview if the interviewer is indeed looking for the components written in that job spec. But remember, you can't be all things to all men. So they're not expecting the world. Sometimes job specs are broken into essential and desired, so it's obviously more important to focus your examples on the essential, have more of a spread for there, and then the desired can help pick it up elsewhere. Don't worry if you don't have everything, because again, if you had everything written in a job spec and it was something that you could do inside out, then they might argue that the job might be too easy for you. You might lose interest as well. So it is kind of catch-22. It's a little bit of balance there as well. So another important aspect of interviews in the management consulting space is the project life cycle. So be able to walk through a project life cycle from start to finish. So be able to articulate each and every step. And if you're a consultant or from a project type background, then that will cover things such as the concept or ideation phase, the problem identification and scoping work, the potential solutions that might be available and the recommendations, and then any pilots or implementation and execution stages, all the way right through to the end of a project with go live and support, and the return on investment, the ROI as well. And again, give examples of your role, responsibility, and the results and deliverables that you personally achieved. What was your contribution? Because it's all about the impact that you can make. They're not hiring the team that you worked with, they're hiring just yourself from this interview if it's successful. So really do focus and be clear on how you can add value by demonstrating your input. And by doing things like using the correct terminology as well. A lot of people, whether they're from consulting or non-consulting backgrounds, but maybe projects, don't always use the correct terminology that other applicants do, and that will resonate much more with the interview. So if you're talking on a program level or a project management level, you might be talking about leading work streams or deliverables or managing resource, time and materials, etc. Again, using the right terms like return on investment, this will really again resonate with the interviewer, especially if you also refer to well-known consulting methodologies and processes where you can as well, because all this is doing is alleviating doubts, potential objection handling, things like that, or making you more stand out as a secure investment compared to another candidate that doesn't quite make it onto the same page. Okay, you might be asked what went well, and in some cases what didn't go so well on such projects. So be able again to articulate what went well, and only if you're asked what didn't go so well, but put a positive spin on anything like that. And this is really to show things like your personal growth, your personal development, learning from mistakes, things like that, because hindsight is a wonderful thing, but the downside of hindsight is, of course, it's only available after the event, once the horse has bolted. So you might look at things from each of these projects or any downsides. How could you have done it differently? Or how could you make it better the next time? Or what did you learn from that experience? Because even a partner in a top Big Four consulting firm is not the finished article, because we keep learning from experience and being at the cutting edge. So if you're standing still, then your competitors will be catching, and so you're actually going backwards because the gap will widen and they'll overtake. So people learn by mistakes when they feel pain, which makes them avoid doing it again or repeating the experience. It's things like even just slamming your hand in a car door or poking your finger into a flame. If you don't like it, you stop doing it if it's uncomfortable. So this is all about learning from experience when this type of question comes up. What didn't go so well? So be able to say how things could have been even better, even if it already was an excellent project. So where do you see yourself in 5 years or in X amount of time frame is often a popular question as well. And this is really referring to your goals and your vision and your aspirations. They're seeing what sort of a character you are. Now, it's a fact that only 2% of the world's adult population actually write down their goals. So how can one hit a goal or even a target if you don't have one? So if you're career driven, you invest in MBAs, you do all of this sort of work, then demonstrate that you're goal driven and what those goals might be. It should be very clear as to where you're trying to take your career, especially if you're investing time, effort in education, learning, and getting onto the right ladder in the right organization. So in the consulting world, you might want to have examples of offshoots as to where you would like to develop further, because again, as well, a bad answer to this sort of question is, in the interviewer themselves, job or role, because you don't want to appear to be a threat. You don't want to sound arrogant that you can be doing their job, or that's even on your agenda. What you really want to demonstrate is that you have a vision of where it might go, and some of this might not yet be available, or it will uncover as the organization expands, enters new markets, products, services, capabilities, that sort of thing. So I've highlighted down here about 7 little offshoots in consulting as to where you might develop as a person. So you could be a lead within an area. You could get more involved in delivery directorship of projects, looking after the P&Ls. You could develop capabilities and take those to market, new propositions. A classic one at the moment is in the digital transformation space, where on one side you have agencies out there who you could argue are more creative, have the digital strategies, but they don't have the science, rigor, process and method of the management consultancies. So mirroring that hybrid set of 2 types of people together into an industry leading capability, because no one company in the digital space has more than 2 or 3% market share. So that could be something where you'd look to take a capability to the market. Also on the client side, sales and business development is always a very commercial area, and ultimately, most partners in a big firm could be targeted with 3, 4, 5 and even more million in business consulting, and even higher in technology and outsourcing practices. You might be somebody that could just look after a handful of tier 1 key strategic client relationship accounts, some tier 1 accounts, or you might get more involved in program growth, which could be marketing, hiring, looking at the standards, the performance, mentoring, coaching, being part of that leadership team. Or you could become a guru, the go-to person, a content subject matter expert within a niche or area. Somebody where you're on the conference circuit, publications, white papers, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different ways in which you can grow within a consultancy, and you can't be all things to all men. So you won't have one person being the biggest salesperson, the subject matter expert, delivering all the projects as well, because there's only so many hours in a day. Okay, so let's move on to some competencies, which will give you some good grit in terms of interviews, whether that be face-to-face or telephone. So the sort of competencies in terms of personal attributes, I've highlighted 5 good ones here. One is a clear communicator, both written and speaking. So be able to be concise and succinct in your answers. Don't waffle and ramble on unnecessarily and repeating yourself. Number 2, confidence. It's not something they will ask you, are you confident? It won't come out in that way, but they'll be looking to see that you're comfortable client facing if it's a face-to-face meeting, say a group exercise or something like that. Or they'll be looking to see in your voice, are you comfortable with what you're talking about? Do you know your content? Do you believe in yourself? Is it compelling and engaging in the way you talk? Number 3, in terms of group presentation and facilitation skills, that's always an important one for consultants, senior consultants, because this is bread and butter stuff day to day. You've got to be able to engage and interact with clients. You've got to lead them round to your way of thinking in terms of involving them. You've got to motivate the audience using techniques like storyboarding or whatever sort of facilitation skills you might use. So have some examples of where you've conducted a group, got them involved, creating input, things like that you then need to go away for business requirements and things like that. Number 4, time management. Again, it's a very key personal attribute, probably in most jobs out there, not just management consulting, but be able to demonstrate examples of all these attributes and competencies in terms of working towards deadlines, pressurized environments. Again, give examples of a pressurized situation where you had to work to a tight deadline, how you might then prioritize the tasks, how you might plan things like milestones. I mean, if you've got to eat an elephant, and God help us if we do, but if we were ever in such a case, it's not a small meal. So the only way to eat an elephant would be one bite at a time. So if you take chunks out of a bigger program or project, then step by step you're making progress. So it's all about how you incentivize the team and make progress on those projects. And the last point on this slide is awareness. I mean, this is self-awareness of one's own strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes you could be asked your 3 key strengths or your 3 weaknesses. In terms of weaknesses, obviously it's more dangerous ground than strengths, but any weakness you want to put a positive spin on that. So it could be something like knowledge of a certain area could be a good one, because anybody can learn and accumulate knowledge. But if you're lacking personal attributes like communication or something like that, then most of us by now in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever it might be, we're already at our professional level of engagement in terms of communication. So you can obviously get better at these things, but these are fundamental things for the role which you don't want to highlight as a weakness. So being self-aware, you can't do everything, and again, be all things to all men. I've used that hypothetical example already, but show where you can delegate. Or other weaknesses could be things like where you try to do too much. You need to empower people more. Again, avoid things like being a bull in a china shop. You don't want to be somebody that digs a hole too deep too quickly. Say if you're sent to a client meeting, you've got to think on your feet, you've got to be agile. So you might be asked things that are well outside your comfort zone, things you don't know about, but intuitively you should be able to engage and ask the right questions and stand your own ground and be diplomatic. And again, you don't have to answer everything on the spot with a client, but show how you would then set an expectation where you might go away, find out that additional information, consult with your team and channel everything through yourself. Things like stakeholder communication, stakeholder management there. Okay, so more competencies. I'll try and whiz through these. Cultural fit ideas. So this will depend on the company and its own individual culture, but things like understanding the work and environment. I mean, is the company large? Is it process orientated? How would you fit into that model? Is it more self-working and on your own initiative? Is there a large structure and hierarchy, a convoluted decision-making process, or are you empowered to make decisions? In terms of career, is there progression, a clear structure like consultant, senior consultant, manager, director, vice president or partner? What is the training aspect and personal development? Who are the leaders of that practice? What are their ethos, their values? Does the company or practice have a strong brand or reputation? And I always look at that like when we go to university, certain universities have a flagship set of courses and other courses that aren't so world famous, if you like. So a company could be better at some things than other practices, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good or bad company. It's who you are and what you're doing, and they could bring in a very strong leader from a better known firm to come in there, and you're still that same person, but you're looking to improve things. So it's a sort of role and timing that you're looking at as well, the sort of challenge that you want to take on. So another cultural fit aspect is often energy. A lot of consultancies like intellectually driven people, but people that are passionate and have drive as well. They have a vision, they have ideas, they're positive, their glass is half full, they have a can-do attitude and approach. But again, don't just say all the right things, be able to give examples of these things as long as they are true to you. So only say these things if you can back it up with some examples, and if it's on projects, clients, current work experience, great. In consulting, even better. If not, then examples from your life, being driven or in terms of learning something, whether it's the piano, anything that requires commitment and dedication. Okay, are you likable, a people person? The consultancies, very cosmopolitan environments, as are the clients. So how would people describe working with you is a common question. Are you creative? Do you think out of the box to solve problems? Now, it's a bit of a cliche at the moment, thinking out the box. Remove the box completely. There is no box. Do you ever think of new ways of doing things? Have you got any examples of these? Can you talk through a set of examples or a couple of initiatives that you actually came up with the idea of and then they were actually implemented even better? Made you tick in the box with that one. So in terms of influence, how do you inspire people? Do you inspire people? How do you do it? Are you a David Beckham type character where you might let the performance do the talking and less so on the verbal elements? and less vocal? Or are you somebody who's more vocal and motivated with words? What is your style? What are your leadership qualities? Are you credible? Do people trust you? And just give examples again, because you don't want to just say the right things without any substance. It's important to always back it up with facts, figures, examples, scenarios, ideally from working life where you can. Personal direction, the final cultural fit. Know what you want, what your goals are. Demonstrate that you're achievement orientated, because in permanent positions, especially, firms are looking for people that will stand the test of time. In management consulting, the attrition rates can be people moving jobs on average between 1.5 and 2.5 years per person. So they want people that will stay around, not somebody who they skill up, give them access to client relationships and things like that, and then they jump ship and go and take all of that knowledge and relationship elsewhere. So they want people that they can trust, rely on it, invest in it, and build that career with. So in terms of competencies with consulting skills, I've highlighted 7 consulting skills here. So you may or may not be from a consulting background, but good transferable skills and traits are: number 1, being an active listener. Again, give examples of where you take time to understand issues and problems. 2 is client, somebody that actively seeks clients' views and issues. And again, this could be demonstrated by immersing yourself in the client environment, understanding their pain, their day-to-day grind, what are their problems. Project management, being able to work within budgets, deadlines, prioritizing tasks, adapting those tasks when things change. It could be a regulatory change, it could be a change in direction, a new CXO, it could be anything. The rug can be pulled at any time, and that's key to project management. So being able to deliver things within budget, on time, and to the correct specification with return on investment as well is really important. Meeting actually the goals and the deliverables that you set out to do. Another very good consulting skill is client management. They're looking to see that you can manage relationships and stakeholders, how you communicate, whether that be verbal or written, again with examples. How do you manage expectation with clients? Have you delivered bad news? Being diplomatic, being able to negotiate and influence the outcome as well when managing these stakeholders, because in today's economy, and more so, people want more and more for their buck. So margins are smaller, expectations even higher, competition is rife. So it's how you differentiate with your relationships and things like that which are key. Okay, they're also looking for people that are committed to the objectives and the result of the client as well. So really good little hint and tip is to demonstrate where you've exceeded expectation, gone the extra mile. I mean, expectations are already sky high, but if you can demonstrate where you met expectation, exceeded it, and then some on top, then that extra mile, that final sort of 10 yards after the 100 yards, that really sort of shows and can separate you from the rest of the pack. Having good judgment as well, being able to demonstrate clear thinking, a logical thought process, being balanced and well thought out, a pragmatic person. So examples of where you look at a problem, take a step back, does it make sense what we're talking about here? That sort of mindset. And then finally, being innovative, always looking to make things better. You don't become lax or rest upon your past glories or your laurels. As we've mentioned, if you're standing still, you're actually moving backwards as others catch up and inevitably overtake. So 6 further competencies for commercial awareness. 1 is just having a general business mind, understanding the basic business and bigger picture. Understanding the political and emotional impacts of change and consulting, how that might drive revenue, profits, costs, and even share price. There's 3 main elements in the triangle of any consulting engagement, and that's usually people, process, and technology. How do the 3 link together? Because they all have an impact on the other. What makes businesses succeed and fail? For example, customers, brand, image, reputation, the way in which a company interacts, its customer experience towards its customers from itself. Apple's a very good example of that, using the sort of multi-channel approach that it does. It's very engaging. People are very brand loyal to companies like Apple. So number 2, commercial awareness competencies is being able to talk about complex issues, but articulate them and explain them clearly to all different types and levels and types of people. So it could be talking about a technical issue with a non-technical person, or it could be talking about a large business commercial issue to somebody who's much lower down, with all due respect in the organization there. So it's being able to communicate different messages, the same message or different messages at all different levels within an organization and to different stakeholders, because everybody's got their own viewpoints and their own jobs, and of course agenda. So industry innovation. Know who the industry market leaders are in whatever industry you're applying in, who is best in class, who is setting the standard, who's got it right, what are the latest innovations or opportunities, such as digital and social media impact on organizations, things like that. It's very topical. So be able to have some insight and a viewpoint on the marketplace as well, because we're not just cloning intellect or consulting methodologies here. We want real people that understand real business situations and the bigger picture. In terms of selling is always key, but it's not for everybody. Revenue is king for any business, so all businesses need this. Can you drive revenue or sell? As ultimately, that's probably one of the biggest commercial factors in making partner or vice president within a notorious or big brand consulting firm. Also opportunistic. Are you a shepherd or a sheep? Do you follow the herd? Can you spot an opportunity, and how would you test it? The sort of rigor around testing an opportunity or new idea. Have you ever innovated, broken new ground, came up with any game changers that then change things and set the standard? Do you take risks? And again, examples of these sort of things. If you've not done anything like this, then do try and stay clear of this sort of conversation. And again, being innovative, always looking to make things better, etc., etc. I've mentioned that one already. So some sort of sample scenarios could be a few test scenarios. How could you conduct a sales meeting? How would you open it, introduce it? How do you build rapport, uncover needs, problems, state solutions, state benefits, and then handle the objections, and then going towards moving towards the closure? Another example could be dealing with a problem client. Describe an example of where you handled a difficult client or problem. What did you learn from it? How would you do it differently? How do you handle it if someone doesn't like working with you, for example? Another test scenario is number 3, explaining a complex issue or technical issue. We just mentioned that on the previous slide as well, an example of that. Or the final one on this slide is a project walkthrough. Describe a typical project or engagement, and again articulate the different stages and what the goal, benefits and result was of that project. Okay, so some of the snazzy little hints and tips that most people won't do, or they may do just 1 or maybe 2 at most. Also prepare for your interviews by going on LinkedIn. Look at past and current employees of the company and where they have come from, and where they've gone to. From this you can see the sort of projects and skill areas and backgrounds that they've had, the level and caliber of these people. You can research your interviewers as well on LinkedIn, of course. Find the names of the people that they're connected to. That might be the leadership team in the practice from LinkedIn as well. YouTube's a really, really good one, but underutilized. Most brand companies now will have a YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that channel feed for free, and every time they upload a new video, you will receive that to your mailbox. So I'd always recommend to subscribe to even competitors as well, if you're not looking for work, but to companies, to see what they're publishing, the content, the information, the marketing messages, because it's always the latest stuff, press releases and things like that come out. So watch the current videos, because the chances are no other candidate will be, or very few will be. In terms of Twitter, follow the accounts. Again, it's micro-blogging. You get lots of links to good presentations, documents, information, press releases, articles, white papers, all of those kind of things. So you should always follow, again, your competition, but also the company that you're interviewing with as well. On Twitter. Same with the Facebook page. Go on Facebook, see if they're on there, because it's a great source of information as well. Articles, photographs, things like that, events. And also SlideShare is one that not many people know about, slideshare.net. Not as many companies will be on there yet because they haven't cottoned on, but it can be a great place for information source, PowerPoint presentations in particular, like this one. And finally, Google. Search the company, see what's hot at the moment. What's going on in the press. If you're talking about an IBM and an Accenture, a Capgemini or a Deloitte, then there'll certainly be the most recent information will be ranking on Google on the first page, just in SEO. So just search for that company name, latest news, something like that, and you should get some topical stuff from there as well. So finally, good luck, and I hope this has been helpful. If so, then please do the following. Please share this video or document with your friends and colleagues on your social media if you think that they can benefit from it too. Also, click like or leave a comment as well with any comments or queries that you might have. If you want more information or other answers to other topics or subjects or things that we haven't covered, then please write them below as well to give me ideas, and I can create more content, more information, and shorten it down as well. Finally, if you're interviewing with a management consultancy, then you could also send your CV to our business, our company, at cv@comspoint.com, as we may have roles for you there as well. And last of all, if you're a consulting company and you're hiring staff and you've liked what you've heard today in this presentation or what you've read, then, and you may want the best consultants in the market, of course, then please contact us as well to hear more about our services. You can send me an email to Craig Milbourne at info@comspoint.com. And very finally, on the last page, here's all my social media accounts if you want to follow more content on Twitter, SlideShare, Facebook, LinkedIn or YouTube. Then those are the names of my presence on social media. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this half-an-hour tutorial, and good luck with your interview, and please let me know the outcome of your interview or whether this information helped, this insight or these tips, hints and tips to pass you through that and get a job offer. Very nice having you here, and speak to you again. Thank you.